Oh, boy.
You watched it every week. You laughed at Oliver's speeches, Lisa's cooking disasters, and everything Arnold the Pig ever did. But Green Acres had layers that most viewers never caught. Small details, real stories, and deliberate choices hidden right there on the screen. Here are 25 hidden details you missed in Green Acres. Number 25. Eva Gabor went on to voice 2 Disney characters.
If it's anyone who can cook, send them right in.
Who's there? Mr. Haney.
Eva Gabor's talents extended well beyond Hooterville. After Green Acres ended, she went on to voice Duchess the Cat in Disney's The Aristocats in 1970, and then Miss Bianca, the elegant cultured mouse who leads the Rescue Aid Society, in both The Rescuers in 1977 and The Rescuers Down Under in 1990. The voice work suited her perfectly. Miss Bianca is charming, refined, entirely at home in diplomatic circles, and utterly unflappable in situations that would paralyze anyone with common sense. Which is to say, she is very much Lisa Douglas, with whiskers and a smaller hat. Gabor was in her 50s when she first voiced Miss Bianca, and she brought everything she had learned playing Lisa to the role. The warmth, the comic timing, the way elegance and confusion could coexist in the same breath. The Rescuers was a significant commercial and critical success for Disney at a time when the studio's animation division badly needed one. So in a way, the woman who'd spent 6 seasons trying to make sense of Hooterville spent the rest of her career helping audiences fall in love with a different kind of countryside entirely. Number 24. The 1990 reunion movie had an unhappy cast.
With the SPCA, I want to report a dangerous animal terrorizing innocent citizens.
It feels like...
In 1990, nearly 20 years after the original series ended, CBS produced a television movie called Return to Green Acres. Most of the surviving cast reunited for it. The movie was set 20 years after the original series, with Oliver and Lisa having moved back to New York, only to find they were miserable there. The Hootervillians asked them to return and help save the town from a developer. Mr. Haney, played again by Pat Buttram, was now in league with the developer, played by Henry Gibson, and his latest product was a Russian miracle fertilizer called Gorby Grow, a nod to the Gorbachev era. The problem was the script. Eddie Albert reportedly hated it so much that he attempted to withdraw from the project before filming began. When it finally aired, he made no effort to conceal how he felt about the result. The original show's surreal, carefully layered comedy had been replaced with a conventional TV movie plot that moved in straight lines toward a predictable resolution. None of the original's strange internal logic was present. The cast showed up and gave what they could, but the material underneath them wasn't there. The reunion was a financial success for CBS and a disappointment to nearly everyone who had made the original series. Number 23. The Rural Purge canceled Green Acres, despite solid ratings.
You don't look like me.
Miss Hathaway, how did you do it?
Well, Chief, the fact that the bank held a mortgage...
Green Acres wasn't canceled because it was failing. It was canceled because CBS made a sweeping strategic decision in 1971 to shed all of its rural-flavored programming and rebrand itself as an urban modern network. In what became known as the Rural Purge, Green Acres was canceled alongside the Beverly Hillbillies, Petticoat Junction, Hee Haw, The Andy Griffith Show, Mayberry RFD, and several others. All of them popular, all of them still drawing audiences. The decision was driven by research suggesting that rural viewers were less attractive to national advertisers than younger urban demographics. Pat Buttram summed up the cancellations with a line that became famous: CBS canceled everything with a tree in it. What made the Rural Purge particularly strange is that it happened to shows that were performing well by any conventional measure. Green Acres had finished 34th out of 96 shows in its final season, still winning its time slot. The Beverly Hillbillies had been the #1 show in America for its first 2 seasons. These weren't mercy killings, they were a deliberate strategic reset. The networks wanted a different kind of audience, and they were willing to throw out shows that people actually watched to find it. Number 22. The show's final 2 episodes were backdoor pilots for spin-offs that never happened.
Oh!
Miss Rush?
Oh, excuse me. Mr. Allen just found one of Mr. Cow's.
The last 2 episodes of Green Acres' 6th season, which turned out to be the series finale, were written as backdoor pilots for 2 proposed spin-off series. The penultimate episode, Hawaiian Honeymoon, focused heavily on a hotel owner named Bob Carter and his daughter Pam, who would have anchored a show called Pam. The final episode centered on Oliver's former Manhattan secretary, Carol Rush, and was intended to launch a show called Carol or the Blonde. Neither spin-off was ever picked up, and Green Acres ended without any of its characters getting a proper farewell. Number 21. The show shared a universe with Petticoat Junction and the Beverly Hillbillies.
Darling, this is the start of a whole new life for us. Sort of a second honeymoon.
Green Acres, Petticoat Junction, and the Beverly Hillbillies all existed in the same fictional world. Sam Drucker, the storekeeper in Hooterville played by Frank Cady, appeared as a regular character in both Green Acres and Petticoat Junction simultaneously, essentially commuting between the 2 shows each week. In 1968, the Beverly Hillbillies ran a multi-episode arc where the Clampetts came to Hooterville and interacted with characters from both shows. One crossover episode even featured a split-second appearance by Eddie Albert and Eva Gabor seated at a Thanksgiving dinner table with the full casts of all 3 series. What's remarkable is that this shared universe wasn't a marketing gimmick. It grew organically from the fact that all 3 shows had the same executive producer, Paul Henning, and existed in the same creative orbit. The Hooterville Cannonball Train, which ran through Petticoat Junction, was also visible in Green Acres. Characters would reference each other in passing, and the geography, though never precisely established, was implied to be close enough that crossovers made casual sense. It was a connected world built quietly and naturally. Years before, that became a common television strategy. Number 20. The telephone pole was a running gag with a practical origin.
What is real? Well, aren't you going to yell at the telephone company?
One of the show's most recognizable recurring bits was that Oliver and Lisa had to climb an outdoor telephone pole to make phone calls, because the telephone company ran out of wire before they could bring the line into the farmhouse. The telephone itself was mounted at the top of the pole, completely exposed to the elements, and reaching it required both Douglases to climb, Oliver in his 3-piece suit, Lisa in whatever impractical outfit she happened to be wearing that day. The joke worked on multiple levels. It captured Hooterville's cheerful institutional dysfunction, the kind of place where a utility company could run out of wire and simply stop, and nobody found this particularly surprising. It also gave the show a visual gag it could return to endlessly without ever exhausting it, because the comedy came not from the situation itself, but from the characters' resigned acceptance of it. By the 3rd or 4th time you saw them climbing that pole, the absurdity had become so normalized that it functioned as a kind of comfort. The image of Eva Gabor in her elegant negligee, perched at the top of a telephone pole somewhere in rural America, remains one of the most distinctly Green Acres images the show ever produced. Number 19. Mr. Haney had 84 episodes but was never a series regular.
Haney, I'm losing my...
Now, since you folks seem to have a hobby of collecting space stones, I'll tell you what
Despite being one of the most recognizable characters on the show, Pat Buttram's Mr. Haney was never a series regular. He was listed as a recurring guest performer, yet he appeared in 84 of the show's 170 episodes. No other guest character came close to that level of presence. Buttram's drawling, conspiratorial salesmanship became so central to Hooterville's identity that the show would have felt incomplete without him, even though he technically never held regular cast status. Number 18. Pat Buttram based Mr. Haney on Colonel Tom Parker.
you'd like to buy a repair kit. Well, I've got a fine $3 repair.
I don't...
Pat Buttram played Mr. Haney, the slick, endlessly inventive con man who always had something dubious to sell the Douglases. The character's breezy, unembarrassed hustle was drawn from a real person, Colonel Tom Parker, Elvis Presley's famously manipulative manager. Buttram had met Parker on the set of the 1964 film Roustabout, in which Buttram played a scheming rival carny named Harry Carver, and Parker, who had actually worked as a carnival barker earlier in his life, was essentially playing himself. Buttram watched him operate and filed it away. A year later, when he got the role of Haney, he knew exactly what to draw on. Parker's particular gift was for making whatever he was selling sound like an opportunity rather than a transaction. and Haney had that same quality. No matter how transparently ridiculous Haney's schemes were, he delivered them with the cheerful confidence of a man who genuinely believed he was doing you a favor. Buttram even borrowed some of the Colonel's vocal inflections. If you watch certain Haney scenes knowing the inspiration, it becomes difficult to unsee. Number 17. Tom Lester made up the story about Arnold being eaten.
Who told you about it?
Arnold? We saw a commercial.
After the show ended, a persistent rumor spread that the cast had held a luau on the final day of filming and roasted and ate Arnold the Pig. The story was entirely fabricated, and the person who fabricated it was Tom Lester, who played farmhand Eb Dawson. Lester later admitted that he invented the tale because he was so exhausted by years of fans asking what had happened to Arnold after the show wrapped. He thought a shocking answer would end the questions. It didn't. It just made the questions more urgent. What actually happened to the various pigs who played Arnold was considerably more peaceful. Number 16. Arnold won 3 Patsy Awards.
Nothing fried, no fatty foods, no strawberries.
The Patsy Award, short for Picture Animal Top Star of the Year, was the animal world's equivalent of the Academy Awards, presented by the American Humane Association to recognize outstanding animal performances in film and television. Over the course of the series, Arnold the Pig won 3 of them, making the character one of the most decorated animal performers in television history. Beyond the awards, Arnold had a public life that would have been impressive for a human celebrity. The pig received thousands of fan letters and had an active fan club. Arnold made guest appearances on What's My Line and The Joey Bishop Show. The various pigs who played the role also toured schools and 4-H clubs across the country, which required a trained animal handler traveling with the pig, a schedule, and a certain amount of crowd management. The character was famous enough that Arnold was held responsible, according to fan mail the show received, for a measurable number of American children deciding to stop eating pork. Whether or not that was true, the production team found the letters memorable enough to mention them regularly in interviews. Number 15. Arnold the Pig was actually 4 different pigs.
A night like this, with my faithful police dog at my side.
One of the most enduring misconceptions about Green Acres is that Arnold Ziffel was a single animal. In reality, the role was played by at least 4 different Chester White piglets over the course of the series. Chester Whites were chosen for their docile, cooperative temperament, which made them manageable on set. The problem was that pigs grow very quickly. Adult sows can reach several hundred pounds, so as each pig outgrew the role, a new, smaller piglet was introduced. The first Arnold was male. All subsequent Arnolds were female, since sows grow more slowly and stayed closer to the right size for longer. All the pigs were trained by animal trainer Frank Inn, who was also known for training Higgins, the dog who played Benji in the 1974 film. Each pig in the Arnold role was obtained from farms in Indiana and Missouri, where Chester Whites were commonly raised. The original Arnold, after outgrowing the show, was cremated when he died, and Frank Inn kept the ashes until his own death, requesting they be placed in his casket. Number 14. Hank Patterson was nearly completely deaf.
Why don't we get going and get this stupid thing over with?
Men, well...
Hank Patterson, who played Fred Ziffel, Arnold the Pig's devoted father, was almost entirely deaf by the time he took the role. The production team worked out a quiet system to help him stay on cue. A dialogue coach would lie on the floor out of the camera's sight lines and tap Patterson on the leg with a yardstick when it was time to deliver his lines. Despite the challenge, Patterson's performance was warm, gentle, and deeply beloved by audiences. CBS knew how much viewers valued the character and kept finding ways to make it work. Number 13. Hank Kimball's rambling contradictions were fully scripted.
Good. Then I can get on with my report. Wherever it is.
Alvy Moore played County Agricultural Agent Hank Kimball, whose entire comedic personality consisted of making a statement, immediately contradicting it, then contradicting the contradiction, until Oliver cut him off in exhaustion. It's easy to assume that kind of circular, self-defeating dialogue was improvised. It wasn't. Every loop and reversal was scripted in full. Moore's gift was making it sound like he was discovering each contradiction in real time. Number 12. No one was allowed to improvise.
I'll call him tomorrow, and I'll ask him what it is in storage, and we'll... What is that?
Green Acres had a reputation for its precise, layered comedy, and that precision was entirely deliberate. Eddie Albert later said that the scripts were so well constructed that improvising would have been impossible and undesirable. He described it as the only show he had ever worked on where he never once wanted to change a single word of dialogue. Every comic beat, every callback, every piece of surreal logic was mapped out in the writing. The actor's job was to execute it exactly as written, which they did night after night. This discipline extended to the show's stranger, more surreal moments, the episodes where the laws of physics seemed slightly negotiable, where background music appeared without a visible source, where characters casually broke the fourth wall and interacted with their own title cards. None of that was accidental or improvised in the moment. It was all scripted and timed with the same precision as a stage play. The writers and director Richard Baer created a coherent internal logic to Hooterville's absurdity, and the actors trusted that logic completely. The result was a show that felt effortlessly loose while actually being meticulously constructed. That tension between apparent spontaneity and actual control was one of the things that made it so hard to replicate. Number 11. Eddie Albert and Eva Gabor were inseparable friends, off-screen.
Lips that touch the sheriff's will never touch mine.
Please.
The warm, lived-in chemistry between Oliver and Lisa on the show was no accident. Eddie Albert and Eva Gabor were genuinely close friends in real life for the entire run of the series and long afterward. Observers on the set noted that they were almost always in physical contact during scenes, a touch on the arm, a hand on a shoulder, and that this came entirely naturally from their friendship rather than from any direction. Their ease together made scenes that could have felt labored feel completely unforced. They had a shorthand that takes years to develop and is nearly impossible to fake on screen. When Oliver and Lisa seemed to understand each other perfectly, even while disagreeing completely, that understanding was real. It was their genuine friendship showing through the characters. When Eva Gabor passed away on July 4th, 1995, Albert was devastated. Those close to him said he was deeply depressed in the weeks and months that followed. After his own death in 2005, he was buried only a few yards from her at Westwood Village Memorial Park Cemetery in Los Angeles. Number 10. Jay Summers based the show on his own stepfather.
Okay, get off. I am off.
The premise of Green Acres wasn't invented from thin air. Creator Jay Summers drew directly from his own childhood experience. His stepfather had always wanted to own a farm and eventually got one, despite knowing almost nothing about how to run it. Summers himself grew up resenting the time he had to spend working on that farm. The whole show, a city person with a farming dream colliding with the grinding, humbling reality of farm life, came from that specific family experience. Number 9. At the end of the theme, they're posing as American Gothic.
Will ya? I wouldn't even come out if I hadn't promised to deliver your order.
If you watch the closing image of the Green Acres opening sequence carefully, Eddie Albert and Eva Gabor are striking a deliberate pose that mirrors Grant Wood's 1930 painting American Gothic, the iconic image of a dour farmer and woman standing stiffly before a farmhouse with a distinctive Gothic window. In the show's version, Oliver holds a pitchfork, just like the man in the painting. Lisa stands beside him with an expression that's more perplexed than severe, but the framing is unmistakable once you know what you're looking at. It's a joke that functions on two levels at once. On the surface, it's a comedic image, the glamorous Eva Gabor standing in a field holding farm implements. But underneath, it's also a comment on the show's own central tension, Oliver's sincere, almost reverent identification with the American farming tradition up against the absurdity of everything Hooterville actually was. American Gothic is a painting about stoic determination and rootedness in the land. Green Acres is a show about a man who has that determination without any of the competence. The pose says both things simultaneously. Most viewers laughed at the image and moved on. The joke worked either way. Number 8. The theme song was a first.
In your message, I told him you're in jail for helping to keep a pig out of the army.
What'd he say?
He said I should call him.
The Green Acres theme, written by composer Vic Mizzy, who also composed the theme for The Addams Family and scored nearly every Don Knotts film of the era, was the first television theme song ever performed by the actual stars of the show rather than anonymous session singers. Eddie Albert sang his part. Eva Gabor, who was a nervous and unfamiliar singer, was coached by Mizzy himself, who told her to sing it like a Park Avenue debutante. someone who had opinions and wasn't afraid to state them. She nailed it in a single take. Mizzy later said it was one of the most satisfying recordings he ever made because the dynamic between the two voices was so natural that it stopped sounding like a performance and started sounding like a genuine argument. Every sitcom that followed with star-performed theme songs owes a small debt to that recording session. Number 7. Eva Gabor really was Hungarian.
There is a nice set of dishes in here. How do we send for those?
All you have to do is...
Lisa Douglas's thick Hungarian accent wasn't an affectation. Eva Gabor was genuinely Hungarian. Born in Budapest in 1919, she was one of 3 famous Gabor sisters, along with Zaza and Magda. The show even built the real-life confusion between Eva and Zaza into the script. In one episode, Lisa admits that her only real domestic talent is doing Zaza Gabor impressions. In The Road, when Lisa appears to say, "doggone road," in frustration, what she's actually saying in Hungarian is, "Things like this never happened in Hungary." The captions got it wrong, but the moment was real. Number 6. Eva Gabor was reluctant to take the role.
Oh, the poor boy. I guess we got to keep him.
He must have a home.
Eva Gabor initially had reservations about playing Lisa Douglas. She had built her reputation on glamour, sophistication, and a carefully cultivated image, not on being the comedic foil in a rural sitcom. The prospect of spending years on a farm set, playing a woman who couldn't cook, couldn't clean, and couldn't even successfully make a phone call gave her pause. What eventually won her over was a careful read of the scripts and a conversation with the producers that convinced her Lisa was never written to be a punchline. Yes, she was out of her element, but the show's particular brand of surrealism meant that everyone was equally untethered from reality. Lisa wasn't the fool. She was simply operating by a different set of rules than the ones around her, and she often got results when Oliver couldn't. What Gabor brought to the role went well beyond what was on the page. Her comic timing was precise in a way that made every line land slightly harder than it should have. Her accent, genuine, not performed, gave Lisa a quality that no American actress could have replicated. Once she committed to the part, she inhabited Lisa so completely that it became genuinely difficult to imagine anyone else in the role. The show stayed in the top 20 in the Nielsen ratings for its first 4 seasons, a run that required both stars to be firing on all cylinders every week. Much of that consistency was attributed to the warmth and comic precision Gabor brought to the role of Lisa, a character who could have easily become a one-joke caricature, but instead became genuinely lovable. Number 5. Albert was a decorated World War II hero.
You told me you knew how to run a switchboard.
You think you could run the board better?
You're darn right I could. Hello?
Most people who watched Green Acres had no idea that the cheerful, bumbling Oliver Douglas was played by a genuine war hero. Eddie Albert joined the U.S. Navy in 1942 and served in the South Pacific. At the Battle of Tarawa in November 1943, one of the bloodiest engagements of the Pacific War, he piloted a small landing craft under sustained Japanese fire and pulled approximately 70 wounded Marines from the beach. Those men had no other way out. He made multiple trips back and forth as the battle continued around him. For those actions, he was awarded the Bronze Star with a Combat V device for valor. He was 37 years old at the time, well past the age when most people were enlisting, and someone who easily could have served in a USO troop rather than in combat. He chose combat. His son said Albert never talked about it much. He simply thought it was what you were supposed to do. Number 4. Eddie Albert was a real farmer.
It is indeed a lost art.
Well, yes, but I don't really... What was that?
Eddie Albert played Oliver as a man who loved the idea of farming, but was completely hopeless at it in practice. In real life, Albert was the opposite. He was a genuine, committed farmer and environmentalist who turned the front yard of his Pacific Palisades home into a cornfield and kept a large greenhouse in the back where he grew organic vegetables. He was passionate about sustainable agriculture long before it was fashionable, and he helped launch the very first Earth Day on April 22, 1970, which happened to be his birthday. He also served as a special world envoy for Meals for Millions in 1963, attended the World Hunger Conference in Rome in 1974, and spent decades lecturing about environmental issues at schools and industrial conventions. The city lawyer turned fumbling farmer he played on television was essentially his own life in reverse. Albert reportedly found this irony genuinely amusing. Number 3. Oliver's name was a legal tribute.
That way we will always have water just by asking for it.
Oliver Wendell Douglas wasn't named randomly. The character's full name was a deliberate nod to 2 real figures: Supreme Court Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes, one of the most celebrated legal minds in American history, and William Orville Douglas, who was serving as a Supreme Court justice during the years the show was being developed. It was the writer's quiet way of signaling that this was a man who belonged in a courtroom, not on a tractor. Number 2, the show was created out of obligation, without a pilot.
Tiny little seed, I'd plant it in the ground, I'd put some dirt on it, I'd water it, and pretty soon, do you know what I'd have?
Green Acres came into existence in an unusual way. Following the enormous success of the Beverly Hillbillies and Petticoat Junction, CBS approached producer Paul Henning about filling another half-hour slot on the schedule, and, unusually, told him no pilot episode was required. Henning was already running 2 shows simultaneously and simply didn't have time to take on a third, so he handed the concept off to Jay Summers, encouraged him to develop it, and stepped back into an executive producer role. The result was a show that went from concept to air without the traditional safety net of a pilot test. Number 1. The show started on the radio.
That's very clever.
Now, you notice, I put it on my left wrist in case I have to make it quick.
Before there was a single frame of filmed footage, Green Acres existed as a radio show. Creator Jay Summers produced a summer radio series for CBS in 1950 called Granby's Green Acres. 8 episodes about a city bank teller who buys a rundown farm and discovers he's no good at it. The radio show ran for about 7 weeks, then disappeared. 15 years later, Summers dusted off the same concept and brought it to television. The basic DNA was identical: a white-collar man with a dream and no aptitude for farm life, surrounded by eccentric locals who take him completely in stride. The bank teller in the radio version was named John Granby and was played by Gail Gordon, who later became famous as Lucille Ball's long-suffering boss in The Lucy Show and Here's Lucy. The television version changed the bank teller into a lawyer, changed the name to Oliver Douglas, and sharpened the surreal comedy considerably, but even the character of Ebb, the good-natured farmhand, was already there in the radio version. Some of the fundamental jokes about a city person's helplessness in the country survived the 15-year gap essentially intact. 25 details, 6 seasons, and one of the strangest, warmest little shows that CBS ever produced. Green Acres never got a proper ending, and most of the people who made it are gone now. But the details are still there in every episode, waiting for anyone willing to look a little closer. If you enjoyed this, go ahead and give the video a like. It helps more people find their way here. And if you want to keep exploring the stories behind the shows and the people who made them, hit subscribe. There's a lot more where this came from.